Raina, did you know that Dolley Payne Madison, the First Lady of the United States, got hate mail?
Really? Why?
Because in those days you didn't show your bosom, and then they kept telling her to cover up.
I need to cover up.
Hi, I'm Marty Mongiello, and hosting you one more time here at the United States Presidential Culinary Museum for Inside the President's Cabinet. I'm continuing to show you what we do with farming and planting at the White House in Camp David, as well as our china collections and cookery and food to prevent poisoning, nuclear, chemical, and biological attack, as well as concerns about bugging, spying, and tapping, all while walking these grand halls loaded with artifacts and antiques. I've got hundreds of stories about the guests we cooked for, and who slept over, and who was invited or broke a bed, and who wasn't invited or lied to. As one of the only very few ever to manage the Camp David Resort and Conference Center, as well as being a White House chef, butler, housekeeper, and bartender, I'll show you the hidden retreat the presidents fished at, rode horses, enjoyed rock climbing, and paintball in the woods. Now, as part of my military duties and training for nuclear blast, war, and launch at times, I'll showcase other elements of presidential service like Air Force One, Marine One, the presidential yachts and rail cars, and what it's like to be a chief inside of the nuclear bunker of Orange One, underground and away from the Earth on the surface. I'm Marty Mongiello, and this is Inside the President's Cabinet.
Okay.
Is this good?
Yeah, I think you're covered up enough. You're not supposed to show your neck or your bosom, and you're not supposed to show your ankles.
Oh.
So, I think you're good. But she was sent these shawls in the mail along with the hate mail from the being seen in the marketplace without a shawl on.
Oh, that sounds like a great con scheme to get free shawls.
Who else saw her in the marketplace?
I don't know, James Madison?
Yeah, James Madison saw her. And the reason she was in Philadelphia, she was actually born in North Carolina, in Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina. And her family moved to Pennsylvania, and she lived in Philadelphia. Pennsylvania is known as the Quaker state, and she was raised in the Quaker sect. Yeah.
When I found out that James Madison had seen Dolley in the marketplace of Philadelphia and fell in love with her as the shrimp that he was, it was unbelievable because they say he was like a pest, and he would send letters over to the Washingtons there in the capital of the United States, the Philadelphia, requesting that they would receive the letters and open them up, and as they said they were reading them, there would be a knock on the door, and one of the servants would go and get it, and it was actually James himself. So Jemmy was there, and he, of course, would come in and say, "I understand you're having a soiree, and I would, of course, like to be seated next to Mrs. Madison. You've got to invite her, and I will be seated next to her." And the Washingtons were like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is so in love with this woman. He's become like the human pest." Okay, so he is actually factually the Church of England, James Madison, President Madison, and you know this becomes the Episcopalian Church in the United States. So he's an Episcopalian. And remember, Dolley's dad had been kicked out of and thrown out of the Quaker Church because he violated one of their tenets, which is when you fail at your business, you have received the righteousness of God's hand that thou didst deserve. And because this has happened is because of your satanic work, or you're leaning towards the black arts, or not following the Bible, not leading your life correctly. That's why your business failed. Okay, so her dad is kicked out of the Quaker Church, and Dolley's going to be kicked out when she marries this interfaith marriage, which is forbidden. This gentleman is not from the Quaker Church, so that means that your name is published in the books that are sent to all the other churches up and down the Eastern Seaboard. If you're visiting, or it's a wedding or some type of occasion, and you think on Sunday we'll just go over to the church, they're going to be checking, and they may notice you and say, excuse me, you've been expunged. You are not allowed in here. Okay, you're from Philadelphia. We know who you are, and you are on the list. You're not allowed in here. So she will be kicked out of her church when she marries the love of her life, James Madison, President Madison. So, oh my gosh, we have right here today the 2023 eggs, but there's a long story before we get to this.
Yeah, the reason we have the White House Easter egg roll is because of Dolley Madison's son, Payne Todd, from her first marriage. He was a delegate in Europe, and during that time he was in Europe, he learned about the ancient Egypt practice of them rolling colored eggs with wooden spoons. The reason we have the Egyptian items here is because of the Easter egg roll comes from ancient Egypt.
That is cool. I had no idea. I was looking at the Sphinx and Tutankhamun and just wondering, like, what does this have to do with eggs and egg rolling? So he actually saw that. Saw that when he was in Europe,
right,
as a delegate, and his dad, I think, had sent him. Is that how he got to Europe?
Yes, President Madison had sent him as an undersecretary or as a secretary to a delegation.
Wow! So he finds all about the Egyptians, these Muslims, rolling these eggs in front of the White Pyramids of Giza. So. This is actually, this heavily celebrated Christian holiday then is really a Muslim practice and a Muslim game.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. And so then how does it get to, from your studies, how does it get to the White House or the American Capitol? Because I know that you had said you read some stuff in the Washington Post. From 1985?
Yes, there were different reports of where the first one was held. Some say it was at the White House, some others say it was at the Capitol. But there was notice of them being at the Capitol. And then up until 1876.
Wow. So it's not held at the White House.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the first one at the Capitol was what, the year of 1816?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right. So this is amazing how these eggs. How these eggs and egg rolling gets to Washington, D.C. And then I was reading that they actually banned this because punks were using raw eggs that were painted and colored. And for the egg tossing games and egg catching games and throwing, they were cracking in bushes with the stink. They said that the Capitol smelled for like 3 weeks, and they did not have pressurized hoses, and that the stink was embarrassing and denigrating with ambassadors and other people showing up. Had you ever smelled a rotted egg?
Yes.
Okay.
I grew up on a farm. I've smelled rotted eggs before.
So that's when they passed. What was the name of the law?
It was called the Turf Act.
The Turf Act, oh my gosh. And this was what, 1876. So then that makes sense why I was reading in my studies in 1877 under Rutherford B. Hayes, the law was not put to the test.
Right.
Because it rained for Easter.
Right.
And all the thousands of children who traditionally came to Washington, D.C.,
they got rained out.
Yeah. So in 78 is where President Hayes is on one of his walks with his top hat and his cane and is confronted by the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
About having the Easter egg.
And they say, hey, mister, you're the president, man. Are you going to allow us kids to do this?
Hold on, okay? You're telling me that kids are just being denied of fun and joy that they've been doing year after year?
That's what happened, yeah.
Yeah. What happened was, and then the kids came up to the president in the street and asked him about saying, hey, our parents are going to be arrested if we go to the Capitol, so we don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And then so President Hayes says, well, we're going to have it at our house. You can come to our house at the White House, and we'll do it on the South Lawn there.
That's right. Yeah, He said, you come tomorrow morning and do whatever you children do for these festivities, and nobody tells me what to do in my grass at my house. So he went down to go into the White House and asked one of the butlers to come over, and he said, bring me some writing paper and a pen, and he wrote out a note for the front gate guard Rainier, and he gave it to him. He said, you take that down there to the front gate. And they opened it up and read it. Of course, they were reading it. What does it say before you bring it down there? It says that whoever shall come to the gates tomorrow to do egg rolling shall be let in and allowed to do their spectacle and festivities. So that's how the egg roll actually was moved to avoid parents being arrested and handcuffed or beaten up with billy clubs to the White House. Right?
Wow.
That's how
really
it got,
nice of him.
That's how it got there. And then that's how it kicked off in 1878, the first time at the White House. But now we know the truth of how the egg rolling really came to Washington, D.C. What do you think?
Wow. That's really interesting,
Yeah.
isn't it, audience?
And so here we have a whole set of eggs this year, the 2023 eggs, and these massive, large gold ones came in.
Yeah.
I've never seen them this big.
That's the first year, I think.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And it's got on there a bunny with White House in his ears. So how cool is that? What else we got this year?
The other special egg this year is Commander and Willow have their own special egg.
Oh gosh,
that they
the blue
signed.
one. So that's only on the blue one.
The royal blue.
Oh, and it has a paw print.
A paw print.
And
a kitty print.
A kitty print. Yay!
Yeah.
The White House Willow. Okay. Yeah. All right. And we got a baby blue. Mm-hmm. We had a lime green this year. They went with a weird lime green. We collect these, right?
Yeah.
We have so many of these guys from years and years. And what do you call this? Burnt orange?
I would say it's orange, yeah.
Yeah. And
a nice pink.
Pink.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the 5 complete set of White House Easter eggs.
Right.
From the White House for this year. And yeah.
There's a chance to win one.
Yeah. Every kid gets one at the end when you leave.
Yeah.
You get one in a box, and that's what leads to collecting.
Yeah.
You know, I got 2 greens because my brother John. And, do you want to trade one? And folks are dreaming about getting the whole 5 set.
Yeah.
And man, I don't know how they get this massive gold egg. I don't know how they're going to do that. I've never seen any that big.
I need something different.
Well, guys, there you go, right, Stormy? And on behalf of Rainia Barry, another episode of Inside the President's Cabinet. See you next time.